let's start with the Bruins, because obviously this is just 65 wins in an 82-game schedule in a sport like hockey. It's just unbelievable, and they managed to figure out a way to win last night again, even though they trailed on multiple occasions. So now we've seen this before, right? Maybe not 65 wins, but we've seen a Tampa Bay Lightning team from a few years back. Remember the Blue Jackets sweeping them. We saw how a team like the Montreal Canadiens, on the strength of Carey Price as a goaltender, right, made it all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals before they got beat. So where do you stand on a team like the Bruins then in all of this?
Well, first of all, I think just talking about these big series underdogs, upsets are common in the NHL. There's no doubt about that, especially in the playoffs. But when we're talking about these big series underdogs, looking back at the last 10 years of NHL series results, we can see that series underdogs with odds of plus 180 or greater have only won 8 times in 42, or 8 out of 42 times in the last 10 years. So these big underdogs are only hitting at about a 19% clip as far as winning the series. That's, more than 10 percentage points, below what you would need to win in order to break even on all of those bets. So, not necessarily the best strategy here, but I think, if you do like the Florida Panthers, unlike me, I'm a big Bruins homer, obviously. If you do like the Florida Panthers, I think you got to look at maybe attacking it on a game by game basis. The odds aren't going to be as attractive, obviously, on the game money line odds, but I think these teams typically win 2+ games in these series, despite being, even when we're talking about the big underdogs or the big favorites minus 300 and more. Those teams are still winning around in 6 games on average. So it won't be a wash, but I do think the Bruins deserve to be a huge favorite here. Stanley Cup champion or Stanley Cup caliber offense on the side of Florida, but not much else. They're a very one-dimensional group. I mean, it does seem a little bit unfair on paper that the team, as you mentioned, that just set all these records for regular season victories and whatnot, has to play the team that won the President's Trophy last season. That's the first time that's happening since the NHL started giving out the award for the President's Trophy. But yeah, I think Boston is a big mismatch for Florida. They play to the details so much better than Florida does. And their goaltender, Linus Ullmark. I know a lot has talked about how Florida has actually gone 2-2 versus the Bruins this year. They don't have a win over Linus Ullmark, though, and I would imagine he'll be starting in game 1. But even if they decide to go towards a guy like Jeremy Swayman, he's actually maybe been better than Ullmark in 2023. On the season, Ullmark's been the guy, but Swayman has been really good over the last few months. And I think the Bruins should be a big favorite here. Of course, I'm not going to lay minus 320, but I do think there's some value on the puck line, or the series spread, minus 1.5 games. In fact, I could justify laying minus 2.5 games here. But as I mentioned, I think this minus 1.5 series spread lines up much better with, what I just talked about, the historical kind of results. And I think this should be priced closer to minus 160, so you can get Boston to win in 6 or fewer games at minus 145. We're not talking about, insanely heavy chalk here. I think it's a good bet for a bet that's going to win more often than not, in my opinion.
I like that. Bruins minus 1.5 games against the Panthers, minus 145. Andy likes it, or Andy has it priced at minus 160. Just real quick sidebar, but you're not like racing to bet the Bruins to win it all just because of the nature of the Stanley Cup playoffs, or the price is just too low for you? The bang for your buck?
No. I mean, at this point, I was, I won't say smart enough. I don't think there were, many people that passed on the Bruins once it looked like they were going to be a contender again this year. And I jumped on earlier this season, so I'm pretty happy with the odds I got on them to win the Stanley Cup. I cashed in on them to win the Atlantic Division at big preseason odds. So yeah, I'm definitely not going to chase the Bruins and their odds at this point.
But someone who's landing on it now, you wouldn't recommend it?
No, I mean, I would just kind of play it by ear as the playoffs goes along. As far as the Stanley Cup futures go, I mean, it likely is going to be one of the best teams that wins the Stanley Cup, and yeah, you might win that bet, but plus 330, not very attractive. Right?
Not very attractive. Okay, I mentioned that Kelly hit his Vegas Golden Knights Pacific Division bet.
Congratulations, Kelly.
Yeah.
Thanks, Andy.
What was your number, by the way?
I don't know. Plus 170, something like that.
See, he doesn't know. Okay, great. That's excellent insight for Kelly on his bet.
I hit it too. I was a chicken, and I immediately bought off my Calgary Flames. I'm about 3 weeks into the season. I bought off my Calgary Flames Pacific Division futures and onto the Golden Knights, and was happy that they got the win last night.
Well, here's the thing, and this is just from being in Vegas, right? So when they got to the Stanley Cup Finals, their first season, everybody was, oh my God, all a buzz. They thought they were going to win it all. It's amazing. Everybody was behind them. This year, they gut out the division, and I do mean gut it out. And yet, you go around town, and I don't feel like anybody really thinks they're a contender. What about this series alone here?
Yeah, I mean, I think Vegas is the better team, probably. I don't think Winnipeg will win the series more often than not, but I like the Jets. From a betting perspective, I think this series should be priced somewhere around minus 122. Let's say between minus 120 and minus 125 in favor of the Golden Knights. That's a big discrepancy from what we're seeing at sportsbooks, and plus 140 at DraftKings. I think that's a plus EV bet, but I've also seen some bigger series prices out there, plus 150, maybe even bigger than that. So definitely shop around. I don't think there's much separating these two teams. I think that puck luck, shooting and saving luck, is probably the biggest thing that's between these two teams right now. If you look at their team stats, specifically even strength, you can see that Vegas has been the superior offensive team. But if you look at expected goals per 60 minutes, they're pretty even, and I think Winnipeg might even be the better team defensively. They've got a better penalty kill. They do a better job suppressing shot attempts, and the goaltending situation here. Laurent Brossoit has come in and stepped up huge in a big way. I don't think Vegas would have won the Pacific Division if he hadn't, with Adin Hill and Logan Thompson both going down. It looks like Hill is coming back. He's back from his conditioning stint, so maybe Bruce Cassidy will have a tough decision here, but I don't know what's going to happen with Vegas' starting goaltending situation. I don't think Brossoit is on the same level as Hellebuck. I mean, there's a reason that he backed Hellebuck up for 4 years. And Hill, while better than Brossoit, possibly, I don't think he's on Hellebuck's level either. But of course, we'll need Connor Hellebuck to shine in order to win this series. And I'm hoping that happens. I think Winnipeg, we'll win this about 45% of the time, like I said. So plus 140 or better is a good bet, in my opinion.
Wow. Okay. Glad I asked. All right. So
sorry, Vegas.
No, yeah, I know. Sorry, Vegas. He said.
Actually, I should say, hey, you're welcome, because Vegas is probably going to crush now.
So Stanley Cup Playoffs begins on Monday, by the way. Continues on from there. Bruins among the teams who play Monday. Knights among the teams. Golden Knights among the teams that play on Tuesday. And we have a minute. I'm contractually obligated to ask you this. Tuesday, the Maple Leafs begin as well. It's been since 1967 since they won a cup. Is this the year
that they win a cup? No, I'm not going to say that. I'll never go that far. That's something I don't want to see happen.
Let's start with a Lightning series. How about that?
Can they win a playoff series for the first time since 2004? I think they can. But I've thought they would be able to maybe for the last few years. So we've seen how far that has gotten me. I bet on the Lightning last year as a small underdog in that series. I was cheering for Toronto by the end, being in Toronto. During that series, I really wanted to see what that place would look like when it really popped off. But I think this is the best Leafs team we've seen, and alternatively, I think you're looking at the worst Tampa Bay Lightning team we've seen as well in the last couple of years. Toronto will win the series maybe 59% of the time. That doesn't result in a bet, and I'm pretty happy about that. I don't want to bet on the Leafs.
It's accurately priced. He don't want to bet on it. You want anything to do with it. Andy, let's do it. I might
have just made that number up, so I didn't have to bet on it.
Let's do this again, Andy.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.